English, Chinese. So the delegates who needs interpretation can have the headphone on or ask for the headphone. We have amongst us Dr. Gulshan Rai. He is a National Cybersecurity Coordinator, being country's first at the Office of Prime Minister of India since March 2015. He has been an active thought leader on GCCS cyberspace as a global commons concept. Dr. Gulshan Rai has over 25 years of experience in different areas of information technology, which include cybersecurity, e-governance, legal framework, and the Information Technology Act. We have Mr. Ido Maed. He is a cybersecurity coordinator, Government of Israel. He joined the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1992 and was posted in several missions around the world. He was appointed as Cybersecurity Coordinator at the Strategic Affairs Department, MFA. He is responsible for coordination of policies regarding international cooperation in cybersecurity. We have amongst us Mr. Yuri Rosenthal. He is an ex-Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands government, a professor of political science and public administration by occupation. Mr. Yuri was elected member of the Senate as a member of the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy. Mr. Raj Samani, he is the chief scientist in cybersecurity firm McAfee agencies in cybercrime cases and is a special advisor to the European Cybercrime Center in The Hague. Mr. Samani has been recognized for his contribution to the computer security industry and is the co-author of the book Applied Cybersecurity and the Smart Grid. So now I hand over the floor to the respected panelists and hand over the desk to them and I request them to please initiate the session. So first of all, I would like to request, we have Dr. Gulshan Rai to kindly address us.
My distinguished panelists, distinguished delegates, friends, good morning to all of you. It's really a pleasure and an opportunity to come here and present our views, more so sharing the dice with the distinguished delegates. I remember Dr. Yuri Rosenthal called me in his office in April 2016, where he said that India should organize this conference. And that's the journey for the conference started. Friends, the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday said that this conference is being simultaneously seen, read, and watched in more than 100 countries. That's the power of internet, which has brought all of us together. We can write, we can watch, we can edit, and that's the power of the internet, which we are having it. Along the benefits of the internet and the information communication technologies, there are some bad effects also. The entire ICT infrastructure is under increasingly attacks. You connect any system on internet and you can immediately see that number of attempts are being made on your system to breach it. The number of incidents a couple of years ago were in few lakhs numbers. But today when we look at it, Those numbers have gone to millions, and there is no exact estimate, but some estimate says that there are about 25 million such kind of incidents which are happening worldwide. The incidents over a period of a time, though some of the nomenclature could be same, but the complexity, the scale has gone up tremendously. We were seeing the phishing mails, the phishing attempt. The same attempts continues today, but the complexity of the phishing attempts has gone up tremendously. The denial of distributed services, such attacks which were in terms of few megabits, today it's common to see in terms of 100 gigabits. There are new kind of attacks which are happening, and some of them I'll just read out. The zero-day attacks, the advanced persistent threats, the advanced malwares, and the ransomware, data theft, and there are targeted attacks on the systems there. The attacks of the nature of SQL injection, the remote code execution, etc. are the most common attacks which are observed in our system there. Every organization, every individual has taken certain steps. They keep on taking steps to install the technologies. Several companies, several organizations in the world have developed the most advanced tools like a next generation firewalls and next generation intrusion prevention. But the activists and the cyber criminals keep teaching those next generation tools too and cause the damage. The financial services, the health services, the IT services, the manufacturing and the logistics sector, telecom sector continues to be under the attacks. And as I said, the attacks are increasing there. Friends, about a decade ago, the number of incidents, or rather these incidents were largely seen from individual. They were more isolated instances there. But today, most of the incidents which we see, they are back on the back. There is some organized groups, organized criminals. They are heavily funded. Those kind of systems we have seen there. The criminals are also using the same internet which everyone is using for their productive purposes, and they exploit those internet facilities to bring more and more damage to the systems there. The recent incident of WannaCry, BetaCry is an example where 100-odd countries were impacted, causing a loss, huge loss into the system. Some of the organizations came to the grinding halt as a result of those attacks there. We keep on listening and we keep on seeing in the media attributing those attacks to one group or the other groups there. But the real fact is, no one has been able to pinpoint exactly from where those attacks comes there. The command and control servers are located deeply. The information is hosted and shared on the dark nets and dark webs. And such information is picked up by someone else. I remember we have seen the anonymous hackers attacks in our country. Initially, it started from to the extent of the 1 gigabits per gigabits attack, but it went on more than 100 gigabits attack. And the moment they realize that the infrastructure is adequately protected, they call the criminals all over the world to come together and start attacking systems. So criminal gangs is organized, is funded there, and they are taking full advantage. As a result, the underground cyber economy is very strong and is growing there. The Honorable Prime Minister yesterday said that the technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT devices are going to play a lead role in the coming years. World over, the countries are focusing to develop these technologies, but these technologies have a dual role, a double-edged kind of a role there. While they bring benefit, they help the people to secure their system by predicting the fault or predicting the vulnerabilities. They also help the cyber criminals and the perpetrators, adversaries, giving information about the vulnerabilities and making their task much easier. Now, these examples, what I described, have two important motives about the cyber incident and crimes. First, many of the most famous incident and data breaches are well interconnected and remain shrouded under the carpet. Secondly, the cyber threats having repercussion in one part of the country or one part of the world can be equally as devastating in some other part of the world or some other region. All of us accept the fact that the cyber incident and the crime seldom occurs in isolation. My experience says that any crime which happens, it takes a couple of months to detect, a couple of months to come up there. Of course, there are several forums, WSIS, UNGGE, ITU, BRICS, SCO. These forums are trying to make the cyber norms to bring certain order to address the issues which has a result because of the cyber attacks and in general from the cyberspace. However, unanimity on such efforts is still eluding. We are still far away from the... At the moment, there is no doubt that many countries do what they can to help one each other to investigate the incident. However, the information which is vital at times falls through the cracks, and that could have helped in solving the incidents there. Friends, while threats arising out of cyberspace and are increasing rapidly, the international law to deal with such cybercrime has become slow to adopt. The heterogeneity of the law enforcement agents, the law enforcement systems world over, and the technical countermeasures of different countries are making the evolution and adoption of the international law a difficult task. The issues relating to cyberspace are multidimensional and too complex, posing challenges in the development of the international law. Addressing the cybersecurity challenges requires a common vision of the international community to deal with the issue by fostering international cooperation. Countries can tackle the problem of borderless nature of the cybercrime by enabling actors beyond the borders of the single country. There will be win-win situation by all countries coming forward to cooperate. It is thus important for the international community to establish a comprehensive regime for addressing various types of cyber threats through the mechanism and framework of international cooperation. Such cooperation can function as a catalyst for evolving the international legal framework. It is felt that there should be enhanced cooperation which must be based on risk and sharing and exchanging information on the crimes and the cyber incidents, the mechanism those incidents were caused. We need to find ways and means. We need to identify the entities who should be involved or who should get involved in development of such mechanism and framework. One such mechanism is the forum of certs. Every country has a cert. We must empower them to exchange and work more closely. Today, I myself was the Director General of his CERT, Indian CERT. I have seen the helplessness of the CERTs, not only in India, but world over, to address those issues, particularly when it originates from multiple locations and from using the multiple technologies there. We need to take adequate steps to identify the criminals. We need to agree and evolve a mechanism for attributing the incidents. There is some view that attribution of incident is more related to military and intelligence. But my view is different. The attribution of the incident is necessary, even if you have to handle the issue which is causing problems in the civilian sector also. Commercial sector, civilian sector. So we need to look at the attribution from that aspect and try to work out the framework which helps us to attribute. Such attribution will help and will go a long way in checking certain crimes and the security breaches there. The bilateral and multilateral agreements are the need of the day among various nations and geographies. Friends, cybersecurity is a game of cooperation. The underlying idea is the trust. Trust is needed not only among the different devices which are connected, interconnected. The trust is needed in every work, every process we do to secure our system. The international cooperation is one of the key to address the challenges arising out of ICT technology, particularly the technologies which we have started using and which have a more blown versions to come up, like artificial intelligence, IoT, machine learning, and the big data computing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, respected Dr. Gulshan Rai. May I now invite respected Mr. Edo Mai to please address the gathering.
Can you hear me? Yes. Good morning. Shalom. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be here this morning and address you on these important topics. Cross-border collaboration in cyber is currently quite difficult, complicated, and therefore leaves much to be desired. However, it is clear that by working together, we can defend more effectively. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently said, it's important to have cooperation between some governments, especially like-minded governments. The more we work together, the stronger and safer we will become. Let me give you some thoughts about the Israeli experience and how we strive to increase our contribution to global cyber resilience. Israel's cyber capabilities are to a large extent the result of its unique global position, being at the forefront of the fight against terrorism and regional instability, but also at the cutting edge of advancing technological development. In terms of the global efforts to mitigate and eliminate cyber attacks, this combination of threat and opportunity positions Israel as a global player. As such, Israel believes in free, safe, and unhindered access to information to allow for further social and economic development globally. If any inspiration can be drawn from the Israeli experience in cyber, it should most probably include its innovative and creative spirit, which is the direct result of the effort to preserve and protect democratic values against threats from the digital domain. Let me first share with you how we see the development of cybersecurity on the national level. Israel's journey in cybersecurity started with the establishment of an agency within the General Security Service in the early 2000s to mitigate threats and attacks against critical infrastructures. In 2010, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appointed Professor Ben Israel to lead a national task force that would prepare the foundations for the creation of a new and independent national cybersecurity authority. This body would develop a national strategy and implement it as well. Thus, by 2012, the Israeli National Cyber Bureau was established, reporting directly to the Prime Minister. This dedicated civilian and open concept would and does provide for optimal cooperation and coordination within all government bodies, as well as with the private sector and academy. The next step was then to create the National Cybersecurity Authority in 2015 to implement a national strategy, along with formulating a government resolution to regulate cyber market. There are therefore two pillars to Israel's cyber approach: security and technology. They allow for the formulation of elaborate and effective policies on the following: a secure and safe cyberspace, national cybersecurity operations, and capacity building. A three-layer security approach was subsequently developed, covering market robustness, systemic resilience, and national defense in cyber by means of establishing elaborate mechanisms and allocating the necessary resources for these purposes. To mention a few: CERT-IL, 5 national cyber research centers, R&D programs such as Kidma for the development of cutting-edge solutions, and many more. The government's leadership role as a guide, expert, coordinator, but also as the ultimate protector, has been a strong catalyst for the market to assume a constructive role in the national effort. Financial incentives, sectoral efforts such as in finance and energy sectors are examples of encouraging the private sector to enhance capacities and strengthen cyber security. Similarly, the academia was guided to set up complementing national research centers, each focusing on specific areas of applied research. Israel is also attracting international investments in research and development for cybersecurity at the rate of about 20% of global market share. As a global cyber incubator, Israel and multinational companies are producing solutions for tomorrow. The government role is both to incentivize as well as connect in a unique format such as CyberSpark in Beersheba. The earlier mentioned building blocks of Israel's approach can be applied also on the international level. First, by focusing on a secure environment and by governments leading the way towards resilience, robustness, and ultimately defense. Second, by improving cooperation between the operational defensive bodies. And lastly, and most importantly, joining hands in capacity building. Today, Israel is witnessing a growing international interest in its in cybersecurity capacities and capabilities. Capacity building programs are envisioned as a primary tool for laying the foundations for future joint efforts. However, such efforts are often more effective if coordinated internationally in order to create a resilient front against cyber threats. In this regard, the Dutch initiative for the Global Forum of Cyber Expertise, of which Israel is one of the founding members, proves to be an excellent provider. At the same time, no formal mechanism could establish the confidence and trust that underpinned any joint security operations. Current international efforts, such as the confidence-building measures resolution taken last year by the OSCE, are still important examples for advancing practical cooperation among states. Israel is seeking to contribute to the international work that is being developed through international and regional global organizations. Following the development of the OSCE CBM process as a Mediterranean partner, working with the Organization of American States and the Bank for Intercooperation and Development in America, and through the United Nations. In addition to this role, Israel is involved in the group of governmental experts within the United Nations, sharing its views on how international law should be applied in cyberspace. Let me conclude by pointing to the importance of a multi-player approach, where all relevant stakeholders need to recognize their responsibilities, roles, and contribution to a safe digital domain. The challenges ahead require global cooperation based on shared values. Let us use this important event and progress together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I now request respected Mr. Yuri Rosenthal to kindly address the gathering.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to have a role in this panel on Cyber4Security as both the special envoy for cyber policies of the Netherlands and a special advisor representative to the global conference, also known as the London Process. I'm proud to see how the global conference on cyberspace has gone all the way from London via Budapest and Seoul and The Hague, my country, to Delhi. And on this path, if not roadmap, the various stakeholders have invariably cherished the need for an open, free, safe, and secure cyberspace for the sake of economic growth and social development. Ladies and gentlemen, viewing cyber through a security lens makes obvious sense these days. The rising tensions in the cyber domain are more and more tangible, and it is a matter of serious concern. We shouldn't ignore the risks present. But on the other hand, it's also important to underscore that cyberspace has proven to be a powerful force for the good. In many countries around the world, cyberspace has provided an innovative boost and brought impressive growth and helped us on the road to sustainable development. Conservative estimates have it that today we can predict a growth in global trade in years to come, which will be more than 50% internet connected. And in my country, for instance, the Netherlands, the digital world is now more important to the economy than Amsterdam Schiphol Airport and the Port of Rotterdam combined. So to say, bits and bytes have come to outweigh Boeings and boats. But of course, there are those downsides, as we all know today. First, growing digital dependency creates new vulnerabilities and risks. And we are not only talking about criminals who prey on our citizens and companies, but we're also talking about hostile states that use cyber operations for espionage, intellectual theft, disinformation, and military gain. The gains of cyberspace are, that's the second point, not equally distributed. With 60% of the world population still having no access to the internet, there is a huge global connectivity gap. Cyber for all, yes indeed, but there is much to do. Third, freedom online is under threat. So tells us, for instance, the most recent Freedom on the Net report. An increasing number of governments is censoring information. New legislation to improve surveillance and control over the internet as part of a tendency towards a surveillance state is a growing concern. Ladies and gentlemen, if we want cyberspace to remain a force for the good, these are the issues we need to address urgently. And for now, I would like to focus on how we could keep the internet safe and secure, and admittedly, I will take a Dutch perspective here. As stated in the Dutch recent National Cybersecurity Strategy, the government of the Netherlands views these interests in terms of freedom, security, and growth and development. And in the Netherlands, for that matter, we actually focus on the 3 Ds. First, development. That is to say that we try and increase the level of security of the ecosystem in general. We are trying to help out on the capacity of countries so that they can help provide more security and will be more responsive to requests for assistance in a crisis situation. Second, in the short term, government responsibilities do require, whether we like it or not, us to reinforce our defense capabilities. Our defensive objectives include boosting resilience to cyber attacks and protecting vital interests in cyberspace. Second, public-private partnerships. Third, detection, response, and increasing awareness. And fourth, and last but not least, education. Given the weakness of defense, it's inevitable that this will also include developing the ability to respond to attackers who have national capabilities. Of course, here, any measure of retortion should be in line with international legal obligations. The point, however, is to help dissuade them from attacking in the first place. And all this will be based on following the principle of restraint. The third D is a D of the long term. The best way to reach a structural solution to security issues at hand is to pursue diplomacy in order to try and negotiate our way out. And this should be done by trying to reach more solid and more broadly accepted agreement on norms and principles of responsible state behavior and clarifying further how international law applies to ICT, as already mentioned by my Israeli colleague. It is clear that this needs to be done in a wider and inclusive group of countries. Ladies and gentlemen, governments cannot go it alone. Other parties need to step in as well. Public-private partnerships are essential. In my country, the Netherlands, we have founded the Dutch Cybersecurity Council, which actually is meant to enforce public-private cooperation. It is a national and strategic advisory body, and the council advises both government and organizations in the country, for instance, critical infrastructure organizations. And this is so important because this council is constituted of highly placed representatives in all these stakeholders concerned: public, private, scientific, technical. Problems at hand are approached from various angles, and the various interests are well covered in this council. And this shows again that cyberspace is actually belonging to everyone and to no one in particular. Ultimately, we all share the same interests. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is also why in the beginning of this year, the Dutch government launched the Global Commission on the Stability of Cyberspace, where government, industry, technologists, and civil society are joining forces to reach a common goal: a digital future cherishing a stable cyberspace, no Wild West, so that the fruits of an open, free, and secure access to cyberspace is there for all. The Commission actually was together here in Delhi in the beginning of this week and promoted a call to protect the public core of the internet, ladies and gentlemen. And it reads as follows: non-interference with the public core of the internet, which means that without prejudice to their rights and obligations, states as well as non-state actors should not conduct or knowingly allow activity that intentionally and substantially damages the general availability or integrity of the public core of the internet, and therefore the stability of cyberspace. Ladies and gentlemen, for that matter, let me add to this the following: that it is of course of great importance here that we, as many other countries, should see to it that the existing body of international law, which has long underpinned relations between states, applies equally in the cyberspace. And of course, it was also mentioned already, it's not only a matter of that international law applies, but now the question is how it will apply to this new dimension of the cyberspace. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the heart of the matter. And it is something that must be actively debated at conferences like this. Various initiatives in this area have already been launched. The United Nations Group of Government Experts process made important progress in 2013 and 2015 reports. And India has played a very crucial role in this process up till now. And we should all build on the important steps that have been taken thus far. Beyond that, we have the Tallinn Manual 2.0 and the Hague process as other useful examples, providing guidance on how to apply long-established legal principles in the cyber domain. Principles like sovereignty, non-intervention, due diligence, and state responsibility. But also the law applicable to the use of force and international humanitarian law. And most importantly, they help all shed light on the legal framework surrounding cyber operations that do not meet the threshold of an armed attack. Ladies and gentlemen, we must take forward the discussion on how international law applies. Also, we need to do so regarding the normative dimensions and discussions, because additional norms of responsible state behavior can play a crucial role in enhancing peace. International norms regarding malicious cyber activities can support existing international law. Obviously, They do not and cannot and should not replace it. For me, all this serves to underscore, to underline the importance of the Global Conference for Cyberspace process. And that is why it is so important that this conference is working to move the discussion forward with all stakeholders involved, nation states, the tech community, companies, non-governmental organizations, academics, and with the help of our own cyber technology, the end users. Together we will have to take the next steps in the so-called multi-stakeholder approach. And as Mr. Gulsenrai, Dr. Gulsenrai knows it, we both avoid the word model here. We don't want to talk ideology, we talk very effective measures to the good. Ladies and gentlemen, India is uniquely positioned to broaden the global conference agenda and to take on those issues regarding sustainable development and digital inclusion. We, on our part, together with India, have set up the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, investing in capacity building, thus helping countries to keep the internet open and secure and free. Now, talking about a capacity building effort, allow me here in India one side note. Let us be attentive to the grandiose developments in the digital and consequently in the physical world. We talk often north and south, but digital technology is covering the non-Western world at a breathtaking pace. And indeed, we are also seeing now what we call leapfrogging processes, where the non-Western technological devices and processes are really something to look at. So when we talk about capacity building, we have to share best practices. And we in the West can learn so much too from our non-Western colleagues, including frontrunner India. As co-chairs of the Global Forum for Cyber Expertise, the Netherlands and India are collaborating on an agenda in which economic growth, digital security, and online freedom go hand in hand. Cyber for all, as this year's theme of the Global Conference aptly puts it that way. With many of the next 500 million internet users coming from India, it makes perfect sense for India to play this prominent role. Ladies and gentlemen, let's work together towards our common goal, a safe and secure cyberspace where clear rules apply to us all. A cyberspace that is governed by the international rule of law, a universal force for the good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yuri Rosenthal. Now, may I request respected Mr. Raj Samani to kindly share your views with us.
Can we get the slides up? Yeah. Can you go to slide 2? 6,312. That's the number that NHS England confirmed patients that weren't able to get medical care because of a computer issue. That's over 6,000 people over the weekend in May that were unable to get medical care that they needed. And to be honest, I could stand up here and I could talk about WannaCry, or I could talk about the attacks in Eastern Europe in which emails started a chain of events that resulted in an entire nation being plunged into darkness. We talk about cybersecurity, we talk about capacity planning, we talk a lot about these things, and quite frankly, while we talk, Rome is burning. And I don't want to sound melodramatic here, but I actually saw the impact of WannaCry firsthand. The day after this occurred, I was actually in a London hospital, and we have a family member sitting there who's unable to get internet access. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal for us, but let me ask you, and if anybody's been in hospital, the internet's your ability to get access to the outside world. It's the only connection you have to being up to date. And in 3 days, I saw the impact that not being connected had on their lives. Somebody that was looking forward to getting procedures, somebody that was comfortable, actually their mood changed completely. And in 3 days, they didn't want to continue with any treatment. This is the reality of the world that we live in. The reality in which a 12-year-old child can get onto the dark web, order drugs, hire a hitman, or even buy stolen credit cards. We as a society need to do better, and we need to do this now. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, we talk about public-private partnership, and I've got multiple examples, but I want to share with you one. And any of you that have heard me speak will know that this is probably my favorite project, because ransomware is a scourge that's impacting us all across the world. Criminals are holding up hospitals. Criminals are impacting educational establishments and private sector firms and public sector. And it's so simple to do. I have a presentation in which I say, can my dad become a cyber criminal? And the reality is he can. So No More Ransom was established for this very reason. And we decided enough was enough. What we have to do as a society is we have to maybe stop talking and actually do something. And on the 26th of July, 2016, we co-founded an initiative ourselves with some of our private sector partners, but also the Dutch National High-Tech Crime Unit in Europol. And we said enough was enough. Any of you that may have seen the film Lord of the Rings may remember that scene when Gandalf is crossing the bridge and he says, "You shall not pass." And this really was that moment. And No More Ransom has been established to provide a repository where anybody that's impacted with ransomware can go to learn about how to protect yourself against it. We don't have to pay for it. You don't have to be a customer. You don't have to live in Europe. You can live anywhere in the world. And you can go to this website and you will get advice on how to protect yourself against ransom. Next slide, please. But more importantly, and I think more impactful, is the fact that you will get free tools to decrypt your computer. Now think about this for a second. Many of us here have received phone calls, frantic from people that have got their data encrypted. Many of us are our default IT support for our families. And yet, when somebody calls you and says, my files are corrupted or they're encrypted, what is the advice we give them? What would you tell your parents if they say they can no longer access their systems? What would you tell the small business who asks you, my systems are locked and my business is stalled? Because the only advice we can give people today is you pay criminals or you lose your data. That to me aren't two options that I particularly like. So we decided enough was enough, and we established this initiative, and the hard work that's done by ourselves and now 116 partners across the world, there's now solutions for them where we freely provide decryption tools. We give you the keys to decrypt your data for those variants that we've managed to break. Now, not every single one of them are covered, and we accept that. But in 1 year, we've successfully decrypted 30,000 computers, impacting criminals by $9.5 million US, and we've made zero revenue from this. Here you have private sector firms, ourselves, the likes I know Symantec here, all of these major firms across the world who've said, we're going to put revenue to one side and do what we feel is necessary. You've got law enforcement participation from all across the world, and we're directly impacting the return on investment that criminals have. Because today, cybercrime is the only crime that has a help desk. It's the only crime in which low risk equals high reward. I mean, criminals today believe that they can get away with it. We did a project recently in which we contacted individuals behind ransomware and we asked them why they did it. We actually interviewed real criminals and they said, because I'm not going to get caught. One individual replied, I'm using this to buy a house. And by the way, he bought a house through ransomware. So we need to do something, and I think No More Ransom is one of the projects that I would like to show as a showcase for public-private partnership. We stopped talking, we got up, we built it, we worked together with law enforcement, we disrupt criminal networks, and we seize the decryption keys and we make it available for each and every single one of you. Next slide, please. And we need to do something now. This is actually a piece of research that we did just recently, in which we were able to install ransomware into an in-vehicle infotainment system. By the way, that's the part in your car, that's the screen that you control. It has access to all of the major functions of your automobile. We were able to install ransomware onto this. Now, we know that there are vulnerabilities in these devices. We've all seen the research that was done against connected cars, but whether it's connected cars or medical equipment, we know that vulnerabilities exist in insulin pumps or cardiac equipment. And I want to ask you a question. What sort of world do you want to live in? Next slide, please. Because the way and the direction that we're moving towards, criminals will be not only impacting our computers and impacting maybe hospitals by attacking, the standard computers that we use, but what's next? Is it the cars? Is it the medical equipment? Do you want to live in a world in which our children are not going to be able to go to work in the morning because a criminal wants payment in Bitcoin or Ethereum or Zero Coin before it allows them to be able to get in the car and drive away? Because unless we do something, that is our future. Do you want to live in a world in which individuals are going to be held to ransom because the insulin pump isn't going to provide them medical care because they didn't pay a ransom to criminals? Because that's the direction that we're moving towards. So I'm asking each and every single one of you, what are you doing personally? Not only in your professional capacity, but in your personal capacity. It's time for us now as an industry to stand up, because I'll tell you now, criminals have been working together. They've been doing partnerships for decades now, and we're just talking about it. It's time for us to stand up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raj Samani. So, as a token of our immense respect, we want to present mementos to our respected dignitaries on the dais. So, may I request Mrs. Rama Vedashri, Director General, Head DSCI, to please come to the dais and present a memento to respected Dr. Gulshan Rai. CEO DSCI. It's our pleasure to have all the guest speakers here on the dais today with us. Mr. Ido Moet. May I request Mr. Sanjay Behel to please come up onto the dais. He is DG ICERT, and present memento to respected Yuri Rosenthal. May I request now Mr. Vinay Thakur, Director, NAGD and Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, to please come up onto the stage and present the memento to respected Raj Samani. Thank you so much, all the guest speakers. And now I request all of you to kindly join us for lunch in the Pullman Hotel. And we shall resume the next session at 1:30 p.m. And we'll try to come back here by 1:20. Thank you so much. Namaskar.